All right, welcome everybody to more coding. Today we are going to be coding a free game as promised to an indie developer who made Starclaw Battle of this particular $10 game, which I recently rated a 1% last year, and a re-review did this game no better. Now, this particular developer took it pretty hard because he is he has made his first game on Steam, but I had a problem with the gameplay. He didn't seem to understand what the problems were, whether it be collisions, too many enemies, too many enemy bullets going every which way, and the bullets being way too hard to see with the stars being so big. Now, this developer has figured out how to make a enemy bigger for a boss and stuff like that, and that's fine. But the gameplay itself is just not fun. And we're not going to talk about all the other problems. You can watch my videos of my recent review if you want to look at that. But he doesn't have any positive reviews yet. So I assured him that I would make a stream and show him the basic idea of how to code such a game and how I would do it. Now, for this, he has stated, I think it even says when you launch this game, that it is made in GameMaker. Exactly what I'm going to be using. So this could definitely help him or anybody else who's using GameMaker. Now, I am using the regular GameMaker, not GameMaker 2. I do own a GameMaker 2, but I prefer to use the GameMaker Studio, the original. It's what I'm used to. And I have seen a lot of other people make posts that GameMaker is a lot stronger and stable than GameMaker 2, even though GameMaker 2 supposedly has more power. The original GameMaker has plenty of power to make a basic space shooter like we're going to be trying to make. And we're going to creating a brand new project inside GameMaker. You'll see we have no sprites. We have nothing here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go to one of my favorite spots on Google. And I'm going to be looking at opengameart.org. It has free game art that you can download and use. So for this, we're going to go ahead and use some already made game art by somebody who's probably better at drawing than I am, so I'm not wasting time drawing game art. Free content, so we don't have to do any kind of credit in this one. I kind of like this one right here. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for either. Oh, okay, it's turning there. Gotcha. There we go. Link. So it's turning left there. That's kind of cool. Yeah, we're going to use these. All right, so this is all we're going to need to start off with, guys. Okay. So let's go ahead and get in our sprite. Let's go ahead and create a sprite. And we're going to call this sprite. You always want to call the sprites like SPR underscore what it is. That way, you know, you're not mixing up the sprite with the object, for example, right? We're going to come in here. We're going to go load. We're going to go... Then what we might do, we might just take this green one here for an enemy for right now. Left. That's all we're going to be using for right now. So we're going to go ahead and load in our sprite. We're going to go desktop. And it's 64. 2. I don't know how big this sprite... 256, that's way too big. Way too big for what we're going to be using. But we're going to go ahead and come into that same sprite. We're going to go edit sprite. And we're going to go ahead and add from file. And we are going to get the left moving one. And then file, add from file. Get the right moving one. Okay. And then we're going to create a new sprite. And we're going to call this sprite enemy green. I'm going to call it enemy green. Same thing here. We're going to go in, we're going to grab it. We're going to edit it. File, add from file, left, add from file, right, bam. Center it. Okay. So we got a couple of ship models that I've got that look pretty good, that we don't even have to give any credit for in our game. No attribution required, and we're going to go ahead and do that. So the first thing we want to do here, guys, is we want to go ahead and create a room, right, for our game. So we're going to go in here and we're going to create a room for our game. And I like to call them RM. Same thing with like your SPR for your sprite. You want to, start your rooms either room underscore and what the we're going to call this the game screen, right? And later on we can make like an intro screen or whatever and add those in. And we want to make 60 frames per second be our speed, right? We want to make the background be black because we have space going on, right? And we're going to go ahead and close that for right now. We want to turn the enemies into an object. To do that, you could come right up here to your object. Looks like a little ball. And we're going to call this object player. We're going to get the player in the game first before we worry about the enemies, right? And we're going to give this a depth player. We're going to give the player a depth of 100, minus 100 though. That way he's over objects and everything like that. Depth is important later on because you want some objects appearing just like you see this window right here. So for example, if the main GameMaker enter was a depth of 0 right here, this right here in like GameMaker would have to be a depth of less than 0 to see it. So for example, if the depth of this window was say 100 instead of negative 100, we wouldn't see this window right here. The depth is important, or you can't see objects when they're behind other things or behind other walls or rocks or whatever you make, right? So depth is very important in GameMaker when you're talking about a 2D game. So the next thing we want to do here, guys, we want to go ahead and do a create event. We're going to put in some code. To go to the code and put in your code manually, you want to do the create event, and you just come over to your control, you grab the code, and you drag it, right? You just drag it over here into the actions. And the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and make the image speed of our ship, of our player, be 0. The reason we want to do this is because if we don't do that, right, when we edit our sprite and we see a preview, right, what's going to happen is it's going to automatically flip like this between the base and left and right. It's going to automatically look like that, and it's going to look like it's wigging out, right? So we want to actually do a speed of 0. That way, it won't actually turn at all. It's just doing that because of the preview here. You can't really set a speed of 0 in the preview window. That's why it's turning red. But even at a speed of 2, which is slower, the lower this number is, the slower it is, right? So that's why if you put like 30, it's going to be really fast, right? So we want to make it a speed of 0. That way it's only turning when we tell it to turn, right? So that's why we're going in and setting it a speed of 0. Okay. Now that we have our player made, we can come over here in our game room, right? And we can look and see how big it's going to be. So we come over here, we grab our object, right? And we grab our player, and now we can drag and put this enemy or this item anywhere in the room. We see that's way too big, but if we launch the game, yeah, we see that, yeah, it's way too big. So we want to come into our sprite, we want to come into edit. We want this to be like probably 32 pixels wide, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to transform, and we are going to scale, right? So we have 256 right now. I believe it's 256. Yeah, 256 by 256. We're going to scale this thing. And we're probably going to scale this to 20% of what it is right now. And we do want this check to edit, apply to images of all sizes. Now we have like a huge background. So we probably want to get rid of that big, way too big, like the box here, whatever. We're still centered. But let's just see how big that is now compared to what it was before. See if that's about where we want it. Yeah, much better, right? So 20%. Now let's come into our player. We're going to go ahead in here. We're going to transform. We're going to resize the canvas. And we're going to do the same thing there. We're just going to go ahead and 20 and 20. Keep this in the middle and hit OK. Perfect. We want to recenter this. Okay, same thing here. We don't want the enemy being that damn big. So we're going to transform. We're going to scale 20. And then we're going to transform, resize the canvas 20, 20. Center it. Now we want to come into the object player and we want to be able to give it the ability, the player, the ability to move left and right. Well, welcome to the stream, guys. So let's go ahead and come in here for the, you always want to check what the player is doing every step, right? So we're going to come in here. Again, we're going to do this all in code. Right? So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure the player is not moving off the left-hand side of the screen, right? But we can do that in the check for movement. So we're basically just going to go ahead and put in player movement with WASD right now, right? And we're going to go ahead and keyboard check. So in the keyboard check, if you have, there's different ways of doing this, guys. So if we come in here to the manual, and we come in here and we search keyboard. All right, it helps. So you can do the keyboard input, right? It'll tell you all about it. And this is what I love about GameMaker. It always has pretty much everything you need right here. So you can do a keyboard check, and you can directly check the number versus the functions. For example, keyboard check, ORD A, which is exactly what we want right now. We'll check the A being pressed, then it'll set the horizontal speed to -5. Note the capital A is what is being used. Keyboard check always checks written in quotes and as a capital. Now, if you want to use the arrow keys, you can modify it to doing like the shift key or whatever. So here's some of your constant keys that you could type in for like arrow keys, for example, VK left, VK right, etc. But the following small example shows how to use VK constraints of keyboard check, for example. But the above code will detect if the tab key is pressed and create an instance of object menu if it is. And then you can also check, well, what is keyboard check pressed and keyboard check direct, etc. like that. With this function, you can check to see if a key has been pressed or not. Unlike the keyboard check function, this function will only run once every time the key is pressed down. So we don't want that. So basically, this would check it every time you press it. So if we use keyboard check pressed, it would only check to see if it's pressed once, and the player would actually have to spam the A key to move left or right. We definitely don't want that. But you do want to make sure that you're using like the right code. So for example, keyboard check direct, this function will return true if the key of a particular key is pressed or false if not, by checking the hardware directly. It allows for a few more checks in particular than using key codes, right? If keyboard check direct, VK alt, left alt, sorry, right alternate or keyboard check left alternate, the above code will check to see if either left or right alternate keys are pressed. If they have, it sets a variable crouch to be true. So we set a variable crouch to be true here, right? So that one's a pretty good check. I don't think I've ever used that. The reason we got an error is because it doesn't know what to do yet. It has an open if statement, right? So we're going to go ahead and check for keyboard check A, and then we're simply going to make sure that the player isn't going to be, if X minus, we'll say 10 is greater than 0, then we're going to move. right? Then x minus equal 10, right? And then we're going to basically take that same thing here, and we're going to go here, and here we want to check the D key. And if x plus 10 is not greater than 1600, we'll probably have to adjust this just a little bit. Then we want to go ahead and add 10. So now we should be able to move our ship left and right. Hey, Brookie Bear, how you doing? Any reference to games that inspired you for this one? Rock and roll, I know you love those type of games. No, I'm actually doing this. Okay, so what is going on here? Wait a minute. There we go. Okay, so I knew it had to be something with the room there. So in my room, I always do draw the background, right? Draw the background color. I guess if you don't, I guess it shows your old locations or your old sprite images. That's kind of weird. Yeah, so basically you want to redraw the background every 60th of a second. Otherwise, you'll see all the past locations of your sprite or your objects. So that's something you definitely want. All right, so that feels pretty good. But again, we need to go ahead and make sure that we're not going off the screen, right? And for this game, we're also going to make a height so you can only go up and down so much as well. So I feel like let's come into our room here. Let's go ahead and make this, because we're moving 10 by 10, let's go ahead and move 10 by 10 here, right? And for our object, we're going to X position 0. There we go. Yeah, we want to start it right in the middle, which would be 800. And we'll start it at a Y position of, well, let's go ahead and see where we want this thing to be in relation to the screen. Okay, so anyway, we want to come in here and we want to say, about how far do we want to go up? Probably 600 is probably as high as we want to go up. And we already know the X is 0 and the X is 1600. 0 to 1600, right? So we're going to put this back at 800. And we're probably going to come here and let's go ahead and go 750 to start with, right? And I don't know why we have this one up here. Don't want that. Okay. Bam. If X is greater than 20, then actually probably, yeah, that's probably fine. Then X plus 10. If X is less than 1580, then and then we want to come here. We want to allow us to go up and down as well. This is going to be W. And this is going to be S. And this one is going to be Y. And we said we want to allow it to go all the way up to about 600. So if X is greater than, say, 620, then Y minus equal 10. And if Y is less than 880, then Y plus equal 10. Try it out. Rock and roll, how you doing, man? We got 4 people here watching. Welcome, everybody. So now we can move our ship all the way around, up and down. So I'll show you guys. You guys are talking about, or Laurent was asking about, there's a reason I'm doing this on YouTube, guys. So if we come here, I think Rhodes saw this video when I recently reviewed the indie game Star Claw.
So then I said to him, "You have a customized
Battle of
car insurance
Nabula
delivered
game," and I gave it basically another negative score. I came in here, and in this comment, somebody said, honestly, I would just let it go. He put a lot of effort into making this. I basically said, hey, yeah, remember, he emailed me asking me to do a re-review. I didn't come picking on him again because the game's still really bad. So down here, basically this guy, here's the developer right here, basically saying, hey, this is about you guys not liking space shooters, so I had to correct him. No, I do like space shooters. I like 2D space shooters. However, I don't like your game, is basically what I said. This guy here basically has a long wall of text about how nobody's given him any kind of constructive feedback or telling him how to fix his game, which I basically said, no, if you watch my review, I give you plenty of content. I can understand how you feel like your game's just being ripped apart, but I gave you lots of feedback on how to make your game better. I said, I also use GameMaker. I said, would you like me to live stream me making a similar game to yours and show you what I would have done better? I said, if I do, because this guy used GameMaker to make his game. I said, if I do, you'll see all my code and mechanics, so you can even take whatever I do, use my exact code or any mechanics you like for your own game. I said, I'm willing to do that for you under one condition. I'll show you how I'd make a game like yours and answer your questions about your code if you have any. If you comment here and promise that you'll never again file a copyright strike, threaten legal action, or any other such nonsense at any reviewer of your game or future games that you might launch. I said, that's all I ask, and I'll make a stream showing you how I'd make a similar game. And so about an hour ago, he said, yep. He said, you have my word on that because all censorship done by big tech, I don't want to be labeled as a censorship game studio anymore. You can read about my studio blog I did back in September of 2020. Screenshot this comment if you want, as I hold my word to it. Because this developer got in trouble for basically threatening lawsuit action against the website Christ Powered Gamer, or whatever it is, Christ Centered Gamer, last year, who reviewed his first game last June. And that's when Sid Alpha and I both reviewed his game as well, and gave it a bad score. And at the time, he was threatening lawsuits and demanding that Christ-Centered Gamer take their review down after he gave them a key to review his game. He didn't like their review, so then he was evidently threatening legal action against them and demanding that they take their video down. So that's why I said, if this guy promises me that he'll never do any such action again, I'll be more than happy to show him how I'd make a similar game in GameMaker. So that's why I'm doing this. How you doing, rock and roll? What's going on, man? So I'm doing this. So we have the ability to move, right? And if we want to prevent you from going down so far, we could do that. And I'm not going to probably do all the, like, I'm not going to do bosses. I'm not going to complete the game. I'm just going to basically show the foundation of how I would make a game like this. So now we simply want it to look like you're going through space, even if you're moving down. Kind of like he did in his video, right? So if we come here to if we come here and we look at his game, so you can see he put stars in his game to make it look like you're flying through space, right? The problem is he had too much going on, and he had bullets and stuff like that flying every which way, right? So we want to go ahead and create these stars, but I also said in my video review that the stars are way too big. So let's go ahead and create some stars here. Right? Star. And for this, we're going to go ahead and edit the sprite. And I think we're going to go, let's go ahead and go 4x4. We're going to make a really small. And for this, we're going to go ahead and go white. We want to go the smallest function here. Let's go ahead and just go 4 stars like that. 4 star. Right? We're going to go ahead and center that. And remember, every sprite has to be an object to be able to put it into the game. Object star, we want to go ahead and connect the sprite we just made. This, we want to give a depth of probably like 1,000 in the background, not negative 100. Remember, our player is negative 100, so it will appear above all the stars in the backgrounds. We're putting these at a depth, right? And in this create event for the stars, we're going to go ahead and drag in some code. And we want the stars to have random depths. So we're going to go ahead and say in code that the depth is going to be a random number of, say, 100, 1000, right? And for that to work, we have to make it a random range. And then for this, we're simply going to say we're going to give each star a direction. Now, with objects, directions in GameMaker are a little bit weird. If you're going to the right, if you want your player to go to the right or whatever, you want to set a direction of it, it's always 0 if it's going to the right. 90 is up and down, 180 is going to the left, and 270 is going down. So we want to go ahead and make the direction of all these stars be 270, right? We're going to go ahead and say the speed of the star is going to be based on how far it is depth, on the depth of it, right? So we're basically going to say the speed equal the depth. We're probably going to say 1100 minus the depth divided by 500. The reason we're going 1100 minus the depth is because we want to divide that, basically the depth, by 500, but we want the further back it is, we want it to the speed to move slower if it's really far back, right? And I think that will do that by subtracting it from a base number here, right? We also want the alpha, image alpha, to equal the depth. We want it to be brighter if it's closer, right? So for that, we're basically going to say same kind of thing. 1100 minus the depth. Like a depth of 1000 would be 100, or yeah, a depth of 1000 would be 100. And okay. And then 1100 minus 100, for example, would be 1000, right? So we basically want to, the 1000 would be, we're basically going to say divided by 1000 here. So if it's, if the depth is 1000, you won't be able to see it at all. Hardly. Biological Amber, oh, that's Biological Amber is following over on Twitch. That stream last night in a game. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look here, guys. Let's go ahead and go into our game. Actually, when we create our game, let's go ahead and create a new object. We want a control object, right? Object, this is an object you won't be able to see. This will be a thing that'll like update the score and stuff like that. There's no sprite connected to it. And let's make sure this goes in our game. You still got to put it in here. Object. Spelled it wrong. All right. Okay. And in our object controller, in the create event, we are going to create a for loop that's going to create a whole bunch of stars all around, right? All around the screen. So to make a for loop, I would actually, okay, so you want to kind of use the code for this, like for a loop. So we're just going to go ahead and copy this format here. Variable I, for I equals 0, if I is less than, probably going to have like fucking 300 stars, right? And every time we're doing this, we're simply going to create a star. Instance create. random range. For the X position, we want it to be anywhere from, say, 5, 1595, comma, random range, 5, 895, comma, object. So what this is going to do is we know our x's of our screen is anywhere from 0 to 1600, right? So we're basically going to create a star in a random x position, and this random range from 5 to 895 is a random position from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, because our vertical size of our window is 0 to 900, right? So now we're creating 300 stars on the screen right when the game starts. So we want to come back into our star here, and we got it direction, we got a speed, which we'll probably have to adjust. The only thing we want to do here is we want to create a step event in each star, and we need to say if y, because the only thing that's going to happen with the direction being set going down here is that the y could be greater than 900, right? Then y plus equal, or y minus equal, we'll say 910, right? We'll put it above the screen here, because the speed's still going to be going the same direction. But when we do that, we probably want to go ahead and give it another, so it's not always the same, right? We want to give it a new random range on the x. We know what the y is going to be. 5, 1595, right? And then we're also going to say the speed plus equal random range. We'll change the speed a little bit too. Negative 0.1, comma, plus 0.1. And we probably want to go probably want to make that. Let's see what we got now. Let's see if we got some stars moving. Okay. So obviously that is way too fucked up. What is going on here? Create 100. Oh, it's right here, guys. So we only want to do this if y is greater than 900. And what I was doing is I was making x be a random range every fucking time. But we only want to do that if the y scrolls down off the screen. That's why. That's why it was flashing everywhere. There we go. So now we see all our stars, and we see how some of them are really faint and some of them are brighter. Looks like it's about the right amount of stars as well. Let's go ahead and put our speed back in that we originally had. Comment that out and see if they're moving about the right speed. Boy, I have the speed pretty close. Look at that. That looks pretty damn good. And notice how the faint stars are actually moving slower than the stars that are brighter, that are closer to me, right? So that just took a few minutes, guys, to get in my stars. I've been streaming here for less than an hour, and I already have base movement of your player. I've restricted it so you can't go too far up. You can't go off the screen like you can in the game I reviewed. Starclaw, Battle of Star Space Nebula. Now we simply got to put in some enemies, and we got to give you the ability to fire. So another thing too here is you're just moving your ship, and it's not changing the. Well, let's go back into our player here real quick, and let's say that image index equals 0. That's the base one, right? But if you're moving left, we want to go ahead and say image index, I believe, is 1. And if you're moving right, image index would be 2, because whoever created that ship made it so you can see yourself turning. So what I'm talking about here is see how, yep, so if you made it so it looks like you're turning left or right. So let's see if that makes a difference. So we're still right here, but if we go left, you can see, or right, you can actually see your ship kind of turning. It's really cool. And this is why GameMaker is so cool, because it allows you to do all this stuff just super easy. Stuff like that. Now we need the ability to shoot, right? So for shooting, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to create Sprite player shot. Edit. And for this one, we're just going to go and we're going to make this one be a 10 by 10 grid. No, we don't want that. We want to come in here. Let's go ahead and just make it a 32 by 32. Okay. And then right here in the middle, we're going to say the shot is going to be a light blue. We're going to make it a line, and we're going to go like that. But we want this centered right in the middle. That looks in the middle to me. You want to see and make sure it's in the middle, right? You can always go and like make a red mark here. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that's with a space between. Okay, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oops. 6, 7. Okay, so this chip to be perfectly centered, we would want it to go one more to the left, right? Okay, so basically it's 3 big. We have a 32 size and we have 3, so it's not perfectly centered. So let's go ahead and use the same color, make the smaller line. It will go like that. And we'll put in dots like that. Now it's perfectly centered. All right. Wink. Wink. Center that. Baby. And it looks like the Y is a little bit higher, so we're going to lower the Y a little bit. Probably 14. Good. And to be able to use the bullet, we're going to come in here and we're going to go player shot. So we're going to give the player shot just a little bit less depth. So we're going to say minus 90 for the depth. Create event. We're simply going to come in here and we're going to give it a direction of 90. Remember, 90 was up and down. 0 is direction of 0 is always going to the right, and then you go counterclockwise from that. So direction is 90. We're going to say the speed is going to be 15. And then here, we're simply going to have the step event. If y is less than 0, then instance destroy. We'll make it destroy itself. Boom. Bam. Oops, we don't have the ability to shoot yet. I haven't put that in the game. So in the object player, right, we simply want to come in here now. And we want you to be able to shoot with that or space. We're going to say, we're going to make it so, and you could easily change up these controls, right? If mouse, back button, MB, left. Okay, so the thing we want to do here, though, is we want to create a couple of variables here. We want to call this can fire equals true. and fire timer will allow you to shoot like 4 times a second. So that would be 60 divided by 15, right? So 0, right? Fire timer equals 0. Actually, we don't even need that. We're just going to create an alarm for this. Alarm, 0. And fire equal. So in the fire ability, we're basically going to say if and fire equal true. Oh my god. We're going to basically say can fire equal false, and we're going to create the bullet. X, comma, Y minus 10. We want it to come up a little bit from the ship. Comma, object, player, shot. Right? And then the last thing we want to do is we want to set this alarm, right? Alarm 0 so that we can fire again in 15, right? So now we don't have any sound effects or anything like that now, but if we hold down our left mouse button, we should fire. And there we go. Huh? So that's probably about the same rate of fire. So you could always make a rapid fire button or whatever, right? That would make this alarm quicker or faster. So for example, if you want to be able to fire faster, you could make that 10. That could essentially be like a rapid fire that you maybe pick up as a power up, right? And see how I'm firing faster now because that number is lower. Whereas if I make that like say a 60, I can only fire now once per second. And it's going to be significantly. See how I'm holding my left mouse button down, but that feels way too slow, right? Any player would be pissed off about that. So I think like 12 to 15 is probably right for default, right? But we could even make a fire speed here. Fire speed equal 15, right? Then we can always just change our fire speed if we hit like a rapid fire power up or whatever. So we're going to say our alarm is going to be set to our fire speed. And by default, in the create event, when we make our player, that's going to be 15, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now we just need to create something to blow up, right? We need to create that enemy to blow up. Okay. So for this, I think we're going to make enemies just come in from the top. So like if you remember the game that I was playing, right? When I first started the game, going through, this is all tutorial or the pre-game movie or something like that. See the text at the bottom. So when I started the game, first of all, my player was sliding off the screen, which was a problem last summer. And in a year, he never fixed that. And I'm not even holding any controls or anything like that. My player slides off the screen by himself. Also, notice how these stars look way too big, are moving way too fast, and are much more of an eyesore. And this is kind of what I was going at when I was reviewing the game. You would definitely want to make stars that look more like my stars rather than like this. And I think anybody would agree with that, right? So again, more player actions. So then we start getting some enemies come in this game. And they are coming in from the top, but there's just too many of them. They're moving too far down. And then when they're down below you, they're shooting upwards and stuff like that. And the shots are coming at you. But because the developer has allowed these enemies to move like too far down, that's causing problems where bullets are coming not only from above you, but from each side and from behind you as well. So all the developer really needed to do in his game was make it so the enemies can't, or make it so that if they do come this far down, that they can't shoot, right? They shouldn't be able to shoot at you if they get past a certain Y position. it just creates a big mess. I think he also allows the player to go too far up. You should never allow the player in a game like this to go so far up that you can't even see yourself. And in this game, you can move your player all the way up and off the screen. So big problems there compared to my game here, right? Boom, 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 boom. So we're only about an hour in, guys. And we've got the player movement here. We've got the player being able to shoot here. And now all we need to do is create the enemies. Okay? And then we're going to have a basic game. And I'll probably work on this more when I get time, but I'm not going to sit here for 8 hours and create a full functioning game with bosses and everything. But I probably will work on this more and more as like a free game that can be downloaded to your PC on GameJolt. And you can go and pick it up and play it yourself. Because I'm not going to invest a lot of time in this game, so I'm not going to charge money. Whereas this developer for this game here, the Star Claw game, Battle of the Space Nebula or whatever, is charging $20 originally last year, and then he knocked the price down to $10. And then he wonders why he's not selling very many copies, right? But we definitely want to add some sound effects as well. So let's come in here, guys, to get a nice sound effect for shooting. Let's come ahead and come in here to BFXR. This is another great free program that you can download. I also like to use this in conjunction with Audacity right here. So this is way if I want to edit my sounds a little bit, like let's say I find a good sound. So we're going to go ahead and say shoot. I don't like that one. Okay, if we take this one here, last one, and we lower the frequency, that's closer. I don't know. Well, let's go ahead and export that for now. We're probably not going to like it very long, but
That's terrible.
down player shot up.
Happened.
Who all's here? Brookie Bear? Yes, Brookie Bear. How you doing? Are you still here? Yeah, I don't like that sound at all. Sounds horrible. That kind of sounds better. But let's export that just as it is and see if that isn't better. Player shot. Laser 7. Probably going to sound a lot better. Sometimes you got to play with this stuff before you get what you like. Sounds way better. Okay. So see, guys, in less than or about an hour here, guys, we have created, I believe, a nice star background that I think looks a lot better than what we had in the star the game that I just reviewed, right?
And then we have this mess of a game with like.
So I think you guys can see that we're already off to a good start compared to what we have with this guy who's worked on his game for over a year. In an hour, I have movement that allows you to not go off the screen, whereas in his game you can move down off the screen, can't even see yourself. The bullets are hard to see over his stars in his game. It's hard to see. We're also not going to allow the enemy to go this low and shoot sideways when the enemies come onto the screen. And there's not going to be so goddamn many of them, right? So we already got a nice start, a nice foundation for player movement. We restrict you to not being able to go up too high. You cannot go off the screen, right? And you have a nice firing rate. That we can adjust, like if you pick up a multiplier, like a power up that will allow you to shoot faster or whatever. We have that in easy code here, where we can just adjust the firing speed. So if we, for example, if we lowered this to say 5, let's say we pick up a rapid fire power up, by simply adjusting that variable, right, within our game, we can suddenly shoot. That could be like a rapid fire, for example, right? And it's all adjusted in one single variable here. So we have a nice start for the game. We don't have that much code in the game already, and I think we're off to a great start. So with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and break this up here. I don't want to stay here for like 6 hours because it's like 100 and something degrees in my house, 100 and something degrees outside. It's a hot day, so I'm going to go ahead and take a break. We'll continue with the development of this game, and once we get a base game where you can start firing and shooting and scoring points, stuff like that, which might be in the next day or two for sure. We'll go ahead and continue with the development of Space Blast, but once we get this game to a playable state, this game will be uploaded to GameJolt for free for everybody. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions about my code here, about what I did, let me know. If you have any questions in the comments below, just ask questions about this. And you cannot buy GameMaker. This might be a question that comes up for people here. You cannot go to Yo-Yo Games and buy GameMaker, but I can assure you that GameMaker is available out there on some of those sites where you buy keys. I don't know if they work or not. I would assume they do. Just make sure that you can get a refund if those keys don't work. What I'm saying is you can still acquire copies of GameMaker for a lot cheaper than what I paid. I paid $100 for GameMaker when I bought it back in like 2016 or something. But you can get GameMaker for under $20, I know, if you look. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody. Love you all.